Welcome to the Getting Started in Dramatica Pro walkthrough video. This video shows you how to create a new story from scratch using Dramatica's built-in story guide. The tutorial is broken into several parts roughly corresponding to the different sections of the story guide. This is part 2, story forming. We pick up in the story guide where we left off in part 1, getting started. The next section is story forming, building structure. Press Shift-Enter to go to the next topic. This section topic introduction reads as follows. Congratulations! Having laid a preliminary foundation, you are now ready to embark on the process of creating your story's dramatic structure. This story forming section is comprised of what Dramatica considers essential questions that every author should know about his or her story. Rather than simple filling in information, here you will be asked to make decisions about the dramatic thrust of your story. By selecting one option over another, you are providing input to the most powerful aspect of your Dramatica software, the story engine. While you are working, the interactive story engine is working behind the scenes, calculating the impact of each of your choices on previous decisions you have already made. Based on your input, the story engine is constantly adjusting which options are available for future questions. In that way, you are always presented with the options which reflect the dramatic intent you have already designed. There's more, but that's the gist of it. Press Shift-Enter to go to the next topic. The story guide now asks us to come up with a short description of our story's goal. The story goal is something that all of the characters are either for or against. It's not something private that concerns only the main character or impact character. Let's see. In the traditional version of Little Red Riding Hood, the goal might be to bring Grandma some food. Let's take this a slightly different direction. There is an escaped murderer on the loose, and everyone wants him captured before he kills again. That opens up the story a bit, and even introduces another character, the escaped murderer. Let's quickly pop back to add this character. Select the Create Characters topic. Click on the Create a Character button. Let's call character number 5 Deadeye Dan. His role is escaped murderer, and he is male. In the topics list, scroll down to Throughline Choices in the Story Forming section. Click on the topic. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Up to this point, the topics have been relatively ordinary of the fill-in-the-blank variety. Whatever we put in is what we get out. Story forming questions are all multiple choice. They range from 2 to 64 options from which to choose. This topic has 4 choices and asks us to determine the area explored in the overall story throughline. We're now in pure Dramatica territory. The overall story can be described as the big picture view of the story. The topic reads, pull back and look at the story from a bird's eye view. Which general area best describes the nature of the problems all the characters are dealing with? We are presented with 4 choices: situation, activity, manipulation, and fixed attitude. Before we go any further, let's take a look at some of the other Help View buttons. Click on the Definitions button. This button gives you the definition for the selected story forming choice. Situation is selected above, so the query system gives you Dramatica's definition for the term situation as it relates to story forming. Look to the short definition, synonyms, and the longer definition to get a better understanding of the choices you have. Change the choice from situation to activity. Take a look at the new definition in the Help View. Click on the Context button. The Context button gives you one or more examples of your choice within the context of the topic. This contextual example reads, Activity as the through line. All of the overall characters are concerned with an activity or endeavor. For example, searching for lost treasure, engaging in a sport, exercising as a way of life, self-flagellation, taking part in a cattle drive, learning about DNA, obtaining secret plans, understanding messages from space, etc. Change the choice from activity to manipulation, and the contextual examples change. Click on the Stories button. Dramatica Pro ships with 68 story examples. The Stories button shows you which of the example stories have story forms the same as your current choice. This means that All About Eve and the other examples listed all have the overall story through lines dealing with manipulation. Change the choice from manipulation to fixed attitude, and the contextual examples change. Amadeus apt pupil, barefoot in the park, and more have overall story through lines dealing with fixed attitudes. Click on the Help button. The Help button gives instructions on what to do in any topic window. This is a multiple choice topic, so the Help text tells us how to pick items from lists with multiple choices. It says we make choices by selecting one of the items on the left and hitting the Add button. Each of these Help View buttons is useful and filled with relevant information. I highly recommend using them as you make choices in your story. Okay, back to our story. We have 4 choices, one of which should best describe the source of conflict for the characters. An overall story through line involving a situation is one where troubles occur because everyone is concerned with being stuck. An overall story through line involving an activity is one where troubles occur because everyone is concerned with a problematic activity. An overall story through line involving manipulation is one where the troubles occur because everyone is concerned with dysfunctional ways of thinking. An overall story through line involving a fixed attitude is one where troubles occur because everyone is concerned with clashing positions on an issue or preconceptions. We said that the overall story through line in Little Red involves an escaped murderer on the loose and everyone wants him captured before he kills again. That sounds like activity to me, so let's make that choice. Select Activity and press the Add button. Sometimes you can't narrow it down to one choice. When that happens, add your alternative choices by adding them to the choice listed on the right. Use the Remove button to clear choices listed in the column on the right that are no longer appropriate. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. We're asked to give examples that illustrate how all the characters in the overall story through line deal with problems related to an activity or endeavor. Deadeye robs Mom and Pop's bakery. Deadeye holes up in Granny's house and stuffs Granny in a closet. Harry is forced back into Deadeye's gang. Buck is fired when Deadeye's gang hits some of the local houses in Buck's security zone. Little Red is abducted by the Deadeye gang when she visits Granny's house, etc. I'm making this up as we go along, just like you would for your story. I'm also cutting out my typing because I speak much faster than I type. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. We are now asked to determine the main character's through line. The topic says to put yourself in Little Red's shoes. Experience the story from her viewpoint. Which general area best describes the nature of the problems she alone is dealing with? You'll notice we only have 2 choices available to us, situation and fixed attitude. If we click on the Context button, the Help view tells us what it might be if we selected situation for the main character's through line. What is it like to have the main character's physicality? For example, her sex, skin color, attractiveness, unattractiveness, size, condition, or disease, though not debilitating, any sort of distinguishing physical attribute. Exploring the essence of having the main character's physicality will illustrate a situation main character through line. We don't need to go any farther. This sounds like the Little Red I had in mind when I said she can't wait for her body development to catch up to her adult mind so that people will stop treating her like a child. Click on the Add button and situation is added to the right column. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. We're asked to give examples that show how the nature of Little Red grows from a situation or environment. I'll expand a little on what I've said earlier. Little Red is frustrated with being an 11-year-old girl. She's smaller than others around her. Her parents don't trust her to leave the bakery alone. The boys aren't interested in her because she hasn't developed yet, etc. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. This topic asks us to determine the main versus impact through line, which is the relationship that exists between the main character and the impact character. The story guide tells us the following. Based on your choice of the overall story through line, Dramatica selected the area below to describe the main versus impact through line. Notice that there is only one choice, manipulation. Since there is only one choice remaining, we don't have to use the Add button. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. We are now asked to give examples that show how the relationship between Little Red and Harry Wolf is centered around a manner of thinking or demeanor. Click on the Definition button to get a definition of manipulation. I don't know much about the relationship between Harry and Little Red, but a few thoughts come to mind. Harry and Little Red play a game of cat and mouse. Harry grows to like Little Red and sees her like a little sister. Red, an only child, is immediately drawn to Harry's independent bad boy nature. The relationship is troubled every time one tries to manipulate the other. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. The impact character throughline has been chosen to be fixed attitude based on earlier choices. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Give examples that show how the nature of Harry Wolf grows from a fixed attitude or outlook. As you may have guessed by now, I don't want Harry to be the bad guy, the antagonist in the story. That role falls to Deadeye. I see Harry more as a borderline baddie with lots of attitude, and as impact character, his attitude has a profound effect on Little Red. Harry is of the opinion that attitude is everything. To him, appearances are only as important as they reflect what's inside your head, your tude. People are weak because they are weak-minded. They're losers because they think like losers. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. This topic just wants you to check to see that you have chosen the right arrangement of through lines for your story. They work for me, so press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Now we get to the juicy stuff. Main character resolve, change or steadfast. The story guide asks, does Little Red change her way of dealing with the problem at the heart of the story, like Ebenezer Scrooge's switch to generosity in A Christmas Carol, or remain steadfast in her convictions, like the innocent Dr. Richard Kimball in The Fugitive? By change, we're talking major paradigm shift here, not natural character growth. Let's make Little Red a change character. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Main character judgment, good or bad. Does Little Red resolve her personal problems and feel good, like Luke finally trusting his skills in Star Wars, or not resolve them and feel bad, like Clarice Starling still being haunted by her childhood memories in Silence of the Lambs? I want a feel-good story, so let's choose good. Let's take a moment to look at our progress. We started off with 32,768 possible story forms. So far, we've narrowed it down to 1,024. That's pretty quick considering we've only answered a handful of story forming questions. Notice the two progress bars below the number of story forms. The upper bar shows us that we're about a third of the way to completing the story forming process. The lower bar shows us that we've barely scratched the surface in the illustrating department. Illustrating is the part of the process where we describe how these story points fit into our story. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Main character approach, doer or beer? Is Little Red a beer who mentally adapts to her environment like Humphrey Bogart's character Rick in Casablanca? Or a doer who physically changes her environment like Bruce Willis's character in Die Hard? Notice that there is only one choice open to us, externally as a doer. Dramatica Pro has determined that Little Red must be a doer in this story based on other choices we've already made. Fortunately for me, that's what I was going to pick. But if I didn't like that choice, I could unmake my previous choices quickly by using the Clear Storyform command located in the Storyforming menu. Then I could remake my choices in the story guide, perhaps starting with Main Character Approach. So let's pick Doer and then move on. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Main Character Problem-Solving Style, logical or intuitive? Does Little Red use a logical method of problem-solving like the scientific Dana Scully in The X-Files, or an intuitive method like the non-rational Fox Mulder in The X-Files? First off, I prefer to use the terms linear and holistic. I think they're more accurate than logical and intuitive. Or better yet, we can go back to the terms in the original version of Dramatica Pro, which are male mental sex and female mental sex. The secret of this question is that it has the greatest effect on linear thinkers in the audience. Choose logical to give your main character the potential for empathy by the broadest cross-section of your audience. If you choose intuitive, much of your male audience is likely to be less empathetic with your main character than sympathetic. In my mind, Little Red is a linear thinker. Click on Logical. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Choose the overall story concern. Which area of concern are all the characters in Little Red interested in or worried about regarding the overall story goal? There are 4 choices available to us: understanding, doing, obtaining, or gathering information. We said the story goal was there's an escaped murderer on the loose and everyone wants him captured before he kills again. Of the 4 choices, capturing an escaped murderer sounds like obtaining to me. Click on obtaining to see its definition. Achieving or possessing something. Works for me. Click the Add button to add obtaining to the right column. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Overall story outcome. Success or failure? Do your character's efforts to achieve the overall story goal result in success, like killing the shark in Jaws, or failure, like not being able to open the dinosaur park in Jurassic Park? Press the Explain button. It says success or failure is solely determined by whether or not the story goal is achieved, regardless of how your characters feel about it. If you want the goal to be reached in your story, choose success. If you want a story in which your characters do not reach the goal, then choose failure. I want Deadeye captured, so I guess this is a success story. Click on Success. If we take a moment to check, we see that we're now down to 64 possible story forms remaining, and we're about 2/3 done with story forming. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Overall story driver, action or decision. Is the overall story driven by actions first, as in the aliens arriving in Independence Day, or decisions first, as in Robin Williams' character decision to impersonate a woman in Mrs. Doubtfire? Actions happen, decisions are made. The story driver describes the major turning points in the plot. Choosing action makes all the major plot turns action-driven. Choosing decision makes all the major plot turns decision-driven. One major plot point that I'd like to keep from the original fairy tale is Little Red's decision to leave the familiar path to Granny's place. Let's click on Decisions Force Actions. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Overall story limit, time lock, or option lock. Is the overall story brought to a climax by running out of time, like the 18 days to save the Earth in Armageddon, or by running out of options like Thelma and Louise driving over a cliff in Thelma and Louise? Choosing time lock generally distances a part of the women in the audience and doesn't let them get into it as much as option lock stories. I don't see a ticking clock in this story, so let's choose option lock. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Main versus impact thematic issue. Now focus on the passionate struggle between Little Red and Harry Wolf. What theme do you want your story to explore here? There are 4 choices: rationalization, commitment, responsibility, and obligation. Click on the Definition button. Rationalization, an alternative explanation used to mask the real reason. Synonyms: fabricated excuse, ulterior explanation, false justification, artificial reason. Commitment, a decision to stick with something regardless of the consequences. Synonyms: dedication, devotion, steadfastness, zeal. Responsibility, taking, accepting, or assuming control to the exclusion of others. Synonyms: assumed propriety, believed appropriateness, self-designated aptness, accepted suitability. Obligation, accepting a task or situation in exchange for someone's earlier or potential favors. Synonyms: agreement, pledge, contract, accepted compulsion, emotional contract. I'm inclined to choose rationalization because it reminds me of the original story where the wolf feeds Red a bunch of lies about taking a shortcut through the forest. Since I'm short on time, that's what I'll go with. Click on Rationalization and then the Add button. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Choose Little Red's problem. Looking at Little Red alone, which personal issue is causing her problems and driving her to solve them? We have 4 choices: consider, feeling, logic, and reconsider. This is something Little Red most likely will not be aware of until the end of her personal growth, but is nonetheless the source of her troubles. Consider means to weigh pros and cons. As a personal issue, this would be someone that keeps running the same thing over and over in her mind. Feeling is an emotional sense of how things are going. As a personal problem, this would be someone who is emotional to the exclusion of practicalities. Logic is a rational sense of how things are related. As a personal problem, this would be someone who is overly rational and lacks or dismisses feelings. Reconsider means to think things through again. As a problem, this would be someone that constantly re-examines her own conclusions. I don't see Little Red as having much of the screamer type, so no problem of feeling. I think she's too logical for her own good, so let's choose logic and click the Add button. A congratulations screen pops up and tells us we've answered enough questions to get down to one story form. Under other circumstances, I suggest reading this screen and follow its suggestion to go through the story forming process a couple of more times to make sure you like all of the choices. Since this is a first-timer's run-through with a made-up story, we don't have much invested in it. Click OK to close the screen. However, it does have one piece of advice I suggest following, and that is to save our work. Press Shift-Enter to move to the next topic. Press Shift-Enter again to move to the next topic. So far, we have completed sections 1 and 2.